Okay, I see the participant list and I see the chat window. All right, so as you guys know, we were discussing about the F5 module here under the Firewall Mastery, and we had a good discussion in the last class. This is where the reading material is, and I will keep it under the Learn portal. You can take this reading material from the Learn portal, go to my course, then the F5 course that is being assigned to you, and class 0. You will find some G Drive link, and you can get access to whatever we are going to be presenting in this whole batch of F5. So what have we discussed in the last class? I'll just recap. So we discussed about the three scenarios, okay, about placing on the F5 LTM. So scenario number 1 was when you have a server directly assigned to the customers. Okay, in the sense you will have all those routers and firewalls, etc. But there won't be a load balancer. Now, what happens is we discuss that if there are, let's say, this is a single point of failure now. If this goes down, then they will lose the reachability. Or if the connections are increasing, if you have more and more number of connections, now there could be chances that packets are getting queued or dropped, server bandwidth or the overhead on the device is being increased. So this is all leading to a problem. That's why we came up with a solution. Let's say, why don't we have a DNS, domain name server? Now here what happens is, let's say multiple users accessing the URL over on FQDN, let's say example dot so and so. So the second person will also access it. The third person is going to access the same. Now DNS might be mapped to multiple IPs. Let's say this is the IP address. So the request will go, and that might be the load balancing purpose has been maintained. But the problem is, if a server goes down, will the DNS keep a record of it? DNS will not keep a record of it because DNS do not have a concept of tracking those servers. It will be forwarding the traffic, TCP connections to the servers, and those connections are all gonna be failing. And the user will say that I do not properly load the page, I do not have the access, might be intermediate issues, etc. That's the problem with DNS. Might be it's okay to do the load balancing, but not in terms of tracking or managing the servers. Then comes the placement of load balancer. So we have kept a load balancer irrespective of F5 or big IP. There are other load balancers available in market. Citrix you have something for Cisco, and the top player being the big IP F5. So you will see majority of enterprise having the big IP F5 acting as a load balancer. Now in this case, what happens is load balancer will keep the record of load balancing the traffic. It will keep the health checkup of those backend server. It will also do a lot of other things like redirection, okay, and optimization and many other things. So let's say now the connection initiated. So this is a connection number 1. It will hit over on the LB. The LB will see that server 1 is good enough and it will send to server 1. Now, at the same time, a new connection is coming to the load balancer. Load balancer will see that already the server 1 is being utilized. So let me give it to server 2. But at the same time, let's say server 2 was down. And as I told you, the load balancer is going to keep the health checkup. It's not going to send the server 2 blindly. Now it will send to server 3. So the second connection comes here. Now let's say there is one more connection originated. It will go to the server 1. Now let's say the fourth connection is coming up, right? And for some reason, let's say this is up now. The server 2 is up. Might be it went on a quick reboot or something. And the load balancer has marked a green signal for server 2. So that connection will immediately be handled by this. So load balancer is tracking all the backend server. So this is where the placement of load balancer is in the enterprise levels. Okay, it will take care of your applications, traffic management, server management, redirection, optimization. We talked about cookies, cache, concept as yesterday, the HTTP optimization. So there is where the load balancer plays important role. So I have prepared a list also to just show you what are the other, the features of a big IP. So it does traffic interception. Basically, what interception or redirection means, depending upon the source. Let's say if there is a source who is initiating the traffic to a server which is behind LB. So depending upon the source quality, let's say if someone is typing this, but if you put certain rules in the load balancer that if something comes to this, you should take it to this URL. And this URL would be hosted on the servers. But where is server located? Server is located behind a load balancer. So the request will hit on the load balancer. Load balancer will check the needful predefined rules and then appropriately do the needful and send to the server. Then server will respond back to the load balancer. Load balancer will respond it back to the source person. So that is what happens in terms of application. So it does traffic interception, redirection. Yesterday we talked about a small topic. We talked about the SSL encryption, decryption, or termination. So F5 can also handle that. Say, for example, what do you mean by the SSL encryption, decryption? So let's say if a source types HTTPS and a certain link. Now this is a SSL TLS certificate which it has on the HTTPS. Now this comes to the load balancer, and then you have server behind the load balancer. If the certificates are going straight to the servers, what is happening? The servers are spending over the extra bandwidth in order to decrypt those SSL TLS certificates, right? And you know that servers are always done either on virtualized concept or they have very limited or fixed bandwidth. Let's say someone is assigning 2 GB RAM and there might be 2 CPU to them. So they are not capable of dealing with a excessive decryption of this SSL TLS certificate. So you can make use of LB to decrypt them. So you can have the respective certificate uploaded here, right? So whatever SSL TLS comes here, it gets decrypted at this point. Now, once it decrypts, then it will send the plain text to the servers. It will be a plain text traffic. Now, server will respond back to LB in a plain text format. Now, the load balancer will re-encrypt and send it over to the user. Okay, so the encrypt and decrypt will rely or remain only between the user and the load balancer. Behind the scene, it will be plain text. But there are certain scenario where the ask is we need to have a SSL certificate on the server. Let's say that is the ask. If that is the ask, then you can keep a certificate either here or even either here as well. But that is depending upon scenario. Sometimes what happens, the text, plain text is not encouraged, even though it is in a LAN. So in that case, you can maintain a certificate between load balancer and server also, so that packets are kind of encrypted once again before the load balancer is sending it to the servers, and server back to the load balancer, and then load balancer back to the user. So this is source. The destination is the load balancer now, because source do not know what servers are they or where are the servers located. For him, it only matters is the destination, and destination might be this. And where is this hosted? It is hosted on your load balancer. So on load balancer, you will create certain virtual instances, and this virtual instances in the behind will be mapped to the respective servers. So servers can be in a private range as well. So let's say you have 192.168.1.1/80, that is the service. So similar on. So you can keep them in this subnet. Listening port, you can keep it 80, TCP 80 or whatsoever it is. So this will be in a private range, this will be public range. And on the source side, you will be revealing those public IP to the user. So they are not even aware what is hosted, where it is hosted, how are you managing the server. It is only the VIP IP that you are giving these users, and they will access the servers over on those things. Okay, so come back. SSL termination, then custom load balancing with I rules. I gave you one scenario in the last class. That is, let's say if the servers are of different calibers. What does that mean? Say, for example, you have a server 1, which is i9's, might be it has 700 GB. You have server 2, which is as usual i3 and let's say 100 GB. Then multiple servers being added. You can add as many as servers behind a LB. Let's say this is i3 and this is 2 GB. So this is behind the LB, and the source wants to access some URL, etc. So the request will come. So by default, what happens? There is a round robin concept. So by default, if the TCP connections come over to LB, LB will distribute in this sequence. But the problem here is you can see that the servers of different caliber. So why should you send equal number of connection in this case? Two connection, and also two connection. Whereas this can accumulate more number of connection. Then comes this one. Then comes this one, right? So it's not like your HA pairing of ASA, or you might know that when we do HA pairing, the two device must be running on the same software version, same hardware capability, same interface. No, there is no necessity that server should be of same capability to be residing behind the LB. You can plug any big server, small server, intermediate server, but you have to change from route robin to certain other things. Might be you can go with the least connection algorithm, or a highest connection algorithm, or let's say the highest ratio algorithm. So what I can do is I can put a ratio of, let's say, 10, and I can put a ratio of, let's say, 5, and I can define a ratio of, let's say, 1. That means this can handle 10 connection, this can handle 5 connection at a time, and this can handle 1 connection at a time, depending upon the server capability, right? So that is what it says, which can be achieved using an LB. So I can do a custom load balancing. It is not always a round robin or certain thing. I have that flexibility to decide what to be done. Okay, the next one, which says about HTTP compression. This is purely about that cache, cookies, the application optimization, right? So if you have something uh, hosted, let's say of 5 MB or 10 MB, you don't want every time those files get downloaded. You can go with certain optimization across on the VIP that you configure on the load balancer. So let's say if you have some image of 5 MB, you don't want that to be getting downloaded from your server, because your server is getting utilized when someone is downloading. So you can go with some HTTP optimization. The same thing, if you see in the WhatsApp, for a simple example, when you even have a DSLR image quality, let's say of 100 MB, 200 MB, 400 MB, but what happens when you just send over on WhatsApp? The WhatsApp server will do the optimization. You send it any MB, but it will convert to that kilobytes and send to the receiver. So that is done because the WhatsApp don't want its server to be choked because of this much of heavy utilization or download or upload over on their server, right? They want it to be uh, more into the messaging concept, and all the rest, like sharing documents, sharing images, videos, that's secondary goal of WhatsApp. Nowadays they have introduced feature like SD, which can still optimize your image size, but keeping the quality at least better than the previous optimization. You can also send it via document. When you send via document, you might have seen, you get to see that entire 5 MB got copied upon, or some 100 MB. That is because documents are usually attachment. You cannot compress it. If you want to compress it, might be WhatsApp has to then sign up with WinZip or WinRAR kind of software. Then it will zip it, etc. It can be a complicated process. So if you're attaching a document, you see that it will go as per the actual bandwidth. But if you, for some reason, are sharing the images from your gallery, from the DSLR, it will simply optimize it and just send it across on the KB, right? Kilobyte size. Why? Because they have done some optimization on their side of load balancing. So that is what it says, compression and optimization. What other things this FI can do? It can have the web-based firewall capability. Now, what are the threats involved? You can expect SQL injection. You can expect cross-site scripting. You can see your database got corrupt, right? This is all related to web-based threats. There are hardware-based threats. There can be threats based on web, which directly, leads to a web-related issue, cyber frauds that you see based on the web security. And as you know that we are dealing with the application layer now, so it's more the big IP has this capabilities to block such kind of threats which is happening on the application layer. It has global server load balancing, which is also nowadays called as DNS. So the purpose of DNS is if the origin of a traffic is, let's say, from India. So why should that go to the server which is hosted on US? There might be some other servers which are very close enough to India, might be somewhere in Singapore or let's say any Asian countries. So the traffic will be redirected to the server which are very short enough or very nearby enough. That's the work of DNS. And then health monitoring, as we discussed, that F5 will in a real time monitor the health So these are some features of F5, uh, which you may not have heard in the case of firewalls or a router. So that is why I have also put up a note how F5 is comparable to router, but still there's a huge difference between the two. So any question till now, till this extent, anything before I go with this? I hope you're following me.
Sagar,
Yeah, go ahead.
can you explain once again the web application firewall in short?
Yeah, see, web application in the sense, the threats that's like SQL injection, uh, cross-site scripting, okay, the vulnerabilities that happens over on HTTP protocol, application protocol. So at that layer, you can have the module from Big IP, which can take care of the application layer threats. You
So
have
that means WAF will not be no more has like any concept on LTM, but WAF is a different module only.
this is a different module. This is a different module. I'm talking about a commonly used features of Big IP.
Okay, 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 got it.
Okay.
And the DDoS attack comes under the web.
DDoS is more probably like, let's say, layer 3 attack or layer 4 attack. Then you need the traditional firewalls to block them, like Palo Alto or any other Firepower or FGT.
Okay.
Okay, depending upon the threat, which layer it is attacking, you have to decide what be the best solution. You can use the replacement of WAF. You know that in Palo Alto can also help you to secure layer 7 because they have anti-spyware, anti-malware, and all those layer 7 attacks, but they are license bound. But in case if you're getting a license which are bit less costlier than Palo Alto, then you can also have Big IP as an option for you to secure the layer 7 threats. Okay, it's all about pricing, need of additional hardware, or you can utilize with whatever you have already in your premise.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Does F5 does it have a feature called web proxy?
Yes, it has one feature called web proxy as well. Okay, so I'll show you the different modules. So these are the different products of F5. This is one of the module. Then we have ASM, which stands for Application Security Manager. We have Access Policy Manager, Advanced Firewall Manager, DNS, which is also GTM, Web Safe, and Carrier Grade NAT. So these are the some of the product. This being the most popular, then you will see some DNS as well in the ISP side, etc. ASM, APM are used, but again to certain extent. I have not seen much. What I have seen is the LTM is widely used in most of the enterprise. Did you guys use any other product from F5?
WAF,
Okay, WAF you have used.
I'm not used, but in our organization they put it WAF, but they have a separate team. They are working on WAF.
Okay, so that is this product line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sagar,
Yeah.
in my organization, we are using Radware firewall. So how it is going to become different from F5 and Radware?
Radfab, right?
Radware load balancer.
Okay, you're using Radware.
Yes, yes.
So the concept will be the same, might be the terminologies are different. Do you have those algorithms in the Radware? So if you see the load balancing algorithm, the terminologies might be different here in this.
Yeah, till now, whatever you have, the feature you have just figured out, almost all the feature we are also using. So, I just want to know, is there any extra feature in both the product?
No, actually, I'm not used Radware, so I don't want to comment what are the features that Radware has or do not has, which in F5 it is. But there are a lot of competitor for load balancer. One is Radware, one is Citrix. You have Cisco's also a load balancer, but not that popular.
Barracuda.
Yeah, Barracuda, etc. So more or less, they will do the same functionality, but terminologies can be different from one to other. Okay, and in the market, BIGIP is in the top one list. Then comes all the rest of the vendors.
Okay.
Okay, so come back. Let's say, okay, we were about to talk about this, how big IP can be compared with a router, but still it got a lot of dissimilarities. So what happens in a router when a traffic is received? So we all know.
Sorry, before you proceed.
Yeah, go ahead.
So those products you mentioned, is it license based or is hardware based? I mean, in terms of the features.
See, all the
Product
all the F5 products, they are license based. Okay.
Okay.
We do get the softwares which we can directly put on our VM workstation and spin it up. But what happens is the traffic don't get processed. For traffic to get processed, you should have a license to activate those modules. Now, the good thing about the licenses, if you go to the Big IP website, you can register for the 2 trial version license key, which they would email you, and then you can bring up the module. So if you want LTM module, you can bring up that. If you need ASM, so they are all time bounded. You get 30 days of free license. So that's the process we follow in the Big IP devices.
Okay. What I just wanted to know is that maybe the product at hardware base, like different products, different hardware, or is it in the same box?
No, it depends on the license, what you are activating for. If you have a license for ASM, on the same hardware, you can bring the module for ASM activated. You don't get different hardwares. It's the same hardware, but the license matters.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So coming to the fact, what router does, router when it receive a packet, will check its routing table and then push the traffic out. Right? So this is what router does it. What happens in case of F5? F5 also have a concept of VIP. VIP are bounded to the behind servers. There would be some pre-built rules, etc. So if something comes to it, it will check if the VIP is present or not. And if the VIP is present, then it will push the traffic. So in one way, it is also serving the traffic request. Right? So that is what I wanted to say. It has a similarity. Okay. Both F5, LTM, and router manage the network traffic. But F5 can do much better handling of the traffic, which router does not. What does that mean now? Say, for example, you received the traffic. Okay, first connection that is out. You got second, you push that. But if you keep getting multiple connection, this is only the router which would end up with queue. or it will start dropping if in case it's unable to handle this request. And there would be an exist path, multiple exist path in case if there is, and it's only a single device which would be handling all the requests. But in the case of F5, what happens is if I have multiple requests coming, I can deploy multiple servers in the backend, right? I can have a server 1, I have the server 2, I have server 3. Now, if I have any number of requests coming to me, what LB does, it will also accordingly push it in a round robin fashion. If something is down, then it is keeping the track and it can push it to the rest of the servers. So the management of traffic, the load sharing becomes much easier in the case of F5 rather than in a regular router or a, let's say, switch or firewalls, which do not have a inbuilt concept of load balancing algorithm or optimizing the traffic. You might end up doing that HA pairing. For HA pairing, you need still an investment of 2 devices. But in case of F5, you don't need another device to handle the load balancing. It is a inbuilt feature of a load balancer. Layer of operation. So where does F5 operate? It operates on the application layer. But you know that router works on a network layer, and a firewall, depending upon its feature, it can be a layer 2 to layer 7. Or if it's a traditional firewall like ASA, then let's say layer 3 and layer 4. The F5 works only on the application. That is why its product like WAF or the security managers, they are also limited to the application layer. So it is not a replacement for your traditional firewall. All your packet filtering, deep packet inspection that happens in the enterprise, they are all handled by the the regular firewalls. I don't say traditional firewall because that will be ASA. I will say the regular firewalls like Palo, FortiGate, Sophos. These have to be there. F5 can handle only from the application layer. That's all. F5 can also give you application optimization. We talked about SSL offloading, content caching, compression, cookies, which you never hear these terms in routers, right? And same with the security capability. So in the security capability, in the sense, let's say you want to have certain restriction that only this source of people can view this, or you want to put some rules that HTTP should be auto converted to HTTP. So those are certain security concepts that you can add in F5. Whereas in a router, you can add access list, extended type, or standard type. You want a VPN, you can create that here. You can also have the different NAT concept enabled there. Routers might not support SSL termination, but firewall does it. Whereas in F5 load balancer, you can treat this as SSL offloading. You can upload the certificate. You can restrict the access to a limited people, because in the F5, while we create any web, we have an option to select source and destination. So destination is our URL. Okay. And source, we usually give it open to everyone. So if I say that it is only specific to, let's say, this LAN. Now it's a sort of a way to, that added a ACL, that only this to this people, this to this destination is only allowed. So it's a way of handling the security in the F1. Scalability and flexibility. Again, you want to extend the network, you want to extend the web, you want to extend the servers, you want to extend the pools, certificate. You want to add to F5 in a HA pairing, all supported, right? So if ever this gets power fluctuated, you can see the traffic getting migrated or transitioned to the second standby devices. So this is how it works. In the F5, we will have a concept of active and standby. That means one will be active and second would be the standby. There is also a way where we can, keep context also. Context in the sense, if I have F5, I can split into multiple logical contexts. So let's say this context is for only customer A. This is where the B. So you should always remember, when you log into an load balancer dashboard, on the top, you have to select the right customer, and then you will see the WIP related to it. That is just because you don't want one single dashboard to handle thousands WIP and you get confused. So you can divide them in a context. So few things are very similar to rest of device like router switches, router and firewalls. And it also has the additional features that we expect from the application. Okay, so that was a comparison between F5 LTM and a router. I also have kept it with the firewalls. So let's say traffic filtering and control. In a firewall, what we do? We put some ACLs. I will say that this source, this destination, and this port is to be allowed. So if something is coming from this, then it will pass through the firewall. But if something don't match, then there is a implicit deny and the packet will drop, right? We can also achieve a similar concept in the load balancer by having web access to only a certain group, let's say 172.16 and so on, can only access this, right? So it's a way of handling traffic filtering in F1. Different ways, not very same way as that we do in firewall. If that was the scenario, then we could have take firewall and kept as a load balancer also, right? So those two are two different piece of hardware or technology. So we should treat them in two different ways itself. But they do also have similar, a similar behavior as well. If you want to packet filter or you want to block certain users. Security policy enforcement. There are a lot of DOS attack, layer 3 attack, layer 4 attack, layer 7 attack. So as we discussed, this can control layer 7 attack. The BIGIP F5 has that capabilities, but not layer 3 or layer 4 attack. Access control, as I told you, the same thing. You can put a restriction. And then the DDoS protection, that is your other modules of BIGIP product. So you had that WAF, ASM, which is what you can use for a firewall concept. Okay, LTM is not properly into the security terms. It's more into load balancing and the traffic management. Okay, but the other modules of F5, ASM, WAF, etc., which can have a bit correlation to an firewalls. But again, they work on application layer, whereas a regular firewalls can work from a much wider OSI layers. So any question till here? All good?
Can you tell me about related to certification, the previous slide?
I'll come to that. Okay, that's part of this class. I'll come to that. Okay. This word is more widely used, ADC, application delivery controller. So that's why I thought, let me keep this, because if sometime you hear the keyword ADC in a job description or something, so don't get confused. It's nothing but they are expecting a knowledge on load balancer. So I wanted to tell you, load balancer is also called as ADC, application delivery control. A ADC is much wider terminology, which means load balancing, SSL offloading, content caching, and lot others. Whereas LTM, we most of the time says that it's for load load sharing or load management, etc. Right? So don't be confused. ADC and FI load balancer or load balancer as a keyword, they are they are almost the same. Okay. ADC can also include like DNS, WAF, LTM, right? So ADC is a wider name which can have multiple product line. Whereas LTM or load balancer, or let's say a load balancer, we always think from the LTM point itself. So it's always better when you see something in the JD, we can ask them what module they are looking for. So if they are looking for LTM, then you have that knowledge. But if they are looking for, let's say, WAF or ASM or some different product line of load balancer which you're not aware, then you can rule that out. Okay. Sometimes they are not aware of LTM, so they might add the keyword ADC. They might ask you which module of ADC have you worked, or have you worked on ADC. So you can ask the counter question whether are you referring to LTM because you have worked on LTM. Okay, so I've seen people confuse that LTM with ADC, and they might mean you LTM, but they ask you the keyword as ADC. So it's nothing but it's other name of load balance. Okay, certification. So when you go to certification, so as like Cisco, Juniper, Palo 40, even F5 has their own hierarchical order. So the basic of them, the first paper here, that is like CCNA level or associate level, is 101. So if you click on 101, you will see that it's more about the application delivery fundamental. This is 101 paper. And if you click on the course content, you can see what is the outline here. You would be working on TMOS. TMOS and shells are two different, the CLI interactive mode. You will be going through the OSI model, which you guys are already CCNA, CCNP certified. You should know how to log into device, take the logs, how do you attach them to the F5 support uh, ticketing tool, troubleshoot network issue. So that can be done either via graphical or CLI. You'll go to certain path, you will see what is the log happened on certain days, etc. Some of the grep command. This is like uh, over on a Linux base. So it would be more of the grep and the cat and the cd command. The problem statement, client server networking. Basically, the F5 also called as client server model, because client is initiating the traffic and server is nothing but the load balancer which is serving the request. Common HTTP error code. If you guys have never heard about it, we will discuss that 1xs, 2xs, 3xs, till 5xs code. The difference between a public and private code and common application service port. This is very important, the service port, because in the back end of the server, all the services are port based. So you have a reservation application, might be that is listening at port number 8001. Might be you have something else on a different port number. So it's a bit on, to prepare on the ports. So this is a basic paper. And along with this paper, we are also touching the 201. So 201 is more focused on the load balancer administrator. So here you would be working on the web nodes, the pool configuration, iRule, SNAT, and other things. When you go to the 201 TMOS, see, you will be able to access, manage the big IP through management IP, self IP. How do you do the administrative task using the graphical interface? Understand the relationship between virtual server, server type, address, pool member, node, profile. So this is all part of the load balancer administrator. Familiar with HTTP, client SSL, server SSL, TCP, UDP. See, this is what I was telling. If you need the offloading happen between client and load balancer, you can select only server SSL. But certain requests are that from the load balancer to the backend server, also you want them to be secured, encrypted, not a plain text. So in that case, you can select another certificate which is gonna encrypt those traffic as well. So this will be complete end-to-end encrypted packet. TCP, UDP, persistence profile. This all comes in the HTTP optimization scenarios. Okay. Open a case, a support case, utilize online resource, ask F5, iHealth, Dev Central. So these are the certain portals, like how we have Cisco TAC, they have iHealth. Like how we have Cisco's support community portal, they have Dev Central. And ask F5s, like when you go to Cisco, when you initiate some troubleshooting chat or a sales request. So it's like a ask F5. And then the software management, like license, hotfix, upgrade. So it's a proper administrator that we would be learning in the 2.0. So these are the two certificates we would be touching. And after this, when you think of upgradation, like once you're done with CCNA, what happens? Then you go to CCNP. When you go to CCNP, you have multiple streams. You might have security in your mind, or you want to go enterprise service provider. Similar way, they have multiple options. You want to go with LTM, complete LTM specialist. There are two papers here. So 301A and B. A stands for the architect, setup, deploy, and the B stands for the maintain and troubleshoot of an LTM perspective. 302 is DNS, GTM, which we talked. 303 is ASM. 304 is APM. Now, when you get into the expert level, then you can decide about security solution. So the prerequisite is you have a knowledge on big IP, FI, CTS, LTM, ASM. So basically all this hierarchical order. So to be a CCI in 401, so you should be 101, 201, and one of the paper from 301 or 303 or 304. If you are looking from the cloud perspective, then this is the hierarchical order. 101, 201, 302, and 402. It's something similar to that CCNA, CCNP, CCI kind of things, the different domains. So this is something which you have here. Okay. So if you're more inclined towards the FI big IP, so you have too many things here, but this is just from your prerequisite that you are learning, might be in future you have some scope. Then I say that LTM is sufficient for you to be expertised into. You don't need others, at least if you're not working into it. Okay, most of the time what happens, network teams are different and the load balancer or proxy teams are different. So that's why most of the time network engineer don't get hands-on to load balancer. But I was into a team where we were managing all of them. We were managing firewalls, we were into routing, switching, and load balancer. So there is when I got exposure to the load balancer. And we never know which role we might get into in future. So it's always better you have a fair enough knowledge, and then you can learn in the production as well. All right, so that was related to certification. Any question in any of the things I showcased?
Sagar.
Yeah.
Go ahead, the other gentleman.
Sorry, come again.
There's another guy who wanted to ask a question. If I may ask mine,
Yeah, okay.
so what would be the best route to take the certificate path? Should we start with 101 and then 201, or just jump to 201?
No, you have to take 101. It would be much better if you just started with F1. So go with F 201 and then go into 201.
And then after that, what would be the next step then? 301 or 302?
Yeah, you can go into 301 if you're following the LTM product line.
Okay.
If you want into DNS, or let's say your target is to go to the cloud, then you have a different levels that you can pick it up.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Sagar, in the previous slide, somewhere you have just told that something about load sharing. So how the load sharing is different from load balance?
Load sharing might be I told in a concept when you have two whips or something. Say for example, okay, see, you're telling load balancing and
And
load sharing.
sharing.
See, I might have told load balancing in a context where let's say it is hitting on a one whip, and that is being load shared between load balanced between different servers 1, 2, 3. So that is load balancing. Load sharing could be, let's say, if this whip is receiving enough number, now you can have a parallel whip which is also handling a different request, and let's say that is pointing to next 3 servers. So same type of applications are hosted, but it's just that this has already been in use for a longer period, and you might have to do a load sharing. So you can have a identical whip on, let's say, 113, 100, and might be 2. So in this context, I might have told you about the load sharing. So clear with that?
So it means in the load sharing, there is multiple load balancer concept is there.
No, same load balancer only. One load balancer, you can create even thousands of whips. So you got that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we have just last few topic. Let me complete that. It's not a complicated topic. It's just a easy to go through. See, F5 deployment, if you know, they can be hardware, software, and cloud. Okay. There are two best hardwares that's available in F5. One is a regular hardware series, and the second one is Viprion Chassis. Both are hardwares. Software in the sense, like in the Cisco scenario, we go to the software center, download a software. We look for KVM or hypervisor based software and put it over on a workstation or EXI. We can spin it up. We get the exact model of it. Let's say if it's a ASA virtual instance, right? ASA virtual image. We can spin it up in a hypervisor like workstation or EXI. If I have a Palo Alto, I go and download the software and upload it on the hypervisor. So similar way, for a F5, I can download it from the software center of a F5, and that can be hosted on a hypervisor, and I'm good enough to get that dashboard and do the needful thing. So that's a software type of deployment. Cloud is all that AWS Marketplace, Azure, and GCP. So you go to the respective provider, pay them. You depending upon what license you need, what uh, product you need, you pay them, and that's another way of deployment. Okay, so software and cloud is pretty much simple. It is software is again we are using in the remote lab or home lab. That's a software basis, and cloud is something which is cloud deployed. So coming to the hardware, the regular hardware series are these. So you have I series, 2x series, 3x, 4x, and 5x. So depending upon your SSL offloading capabilities, depending upon the packet throughput, you can select the respective series. But there is much better series as well in terms of enterprise. That's called a Viprion. Something which looks like a regular router switch, comes with a chassis, blade, uh, the PSU power supply, the hot swappable fan units, right? Like we have in a Cisco Nexus or those ASR big boxes. So same kind of thing. These are also mountable on the rack that we have in the data centers. So that's why they have mentioned Viprion chassis, blade, performance blade, management blade. These are hot swappable. Hot swappable in the sense I can pull the respective unit. Say, for example, if this is faulty, I can take this out, do the RMA, wait for the new one, and insert it on this. And at the same time, this will be still running up. I don't have to just ship the entire box like a standalone box or something. Okay, so these are, yeah, go ahead.
Can you go to the previous slide, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, because okay, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so this is the regular hardware where I also told you that there is a small LCD display to do your management, IP config, etc. Otherwise, you always have that CLI way to do the needful on the management IP. You can either keep a static IP, which by default is 192.168.1.145, or you can change it to a DHCP and get an IP and then access the management port and do the first license part, etc. This is the Viprion hardware. Okay, so I think I'm done till this step. So that's all for today's class. Now in the next class, we can start with our lab 1, which I wanted to show you today. That is, how do you license or how do you request for the license? It's a tricky one, which in F5 we do it. Maybe I'll show it in a fresh class that we start next Saturday.
Sagar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this course, is there anything related to Cipher suite profile?
Cipher suite. Cipher suite we have in VPN. So see, during SSL, I will be talking about that SSL handshake, etc. But we will not be going in depth of. You're telling cryptographic suite, or what is that you said?
Cipher suite.
Cipher suite. Okay. I'll see. I mean, if a topic needs that, I'll tell you about that.
Okay. And next week there will be Diwali. So is there any classes going to be happen on 11, 12?
Okay, if there is Diwali, then we will not have the class. Okay. So which is
And
that?
Sagar, this where
Yeah, go ahead.
I have another question. Sorry, where can we find these slides? Because I was checking in this class
Yeah.
0.
Yeah,
I'm not able to find it.
I will upload to that. So it's pending on me. I'll upload and I will confirm in the WhatsApp group. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So the name of this file should be, 1 second. Let me just check. Yeah, it will be something like F5 LTM 2023. And also in the next class, I will show you some CLI commands that we use in the LTM. That I'll show you once we do with our the license part, and then in the lab 2, I'll show you how to access the graphical interface. And might be in the lab 3, I will show you some CLI commands that we can use on a LTM product. Okay, so that is the agenda for the next upcoming classes.
Sagar,
Yeah.
can you tell your colleagues to message us on WhatsApp when when there is a class or when there is no class? Yeah, because
Okay,
we're here,
sure.
we might not know the Diwali time and all that stuff. So if you give us some sort of announcement on the
Yes.
chat.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that
We
would
do
be
the
great.
announcement on the common group. We will inform you well in advance that if there is any cancellation due to any reasons. Okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Sagar, I have another thing that I want to report here. I tried to access the remote lab, and I tried to connect to the BIGIP, and I have a error. This says something like when we try to open the CLI, network error connection timeout. I also reported to Diva,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I got your issue. So what is happening is when you go into that F5 lab, our emulator, on the left hand side, there will be a toggle button to enable the HTML mode. So if you bring that up and then you can click on that particular F5 node,
change
and
it.
yeah, and it should work then.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's wrap up and we connect in the next class. Okay. Have a nice day. Take care.
Thank you, Sagar.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.